It started as a family camping trip under the Australian sky. A calm night turned into a mother's worst nightmare. And for decades, the world refused to believe her. Her name was Lindy Chamberlain. On August 17, 1980, she and her husband Michael took their 3 children camping near Uluru. Their youngest, Azaria, was just 9 weeks old. That night, Lindy placed Azaria in a tent to sleep. Minutes later, she heard a sound and saw a dingo running away. "A dingo's got my baby!" she screamed. But instead of sympathy, came suspicion. Police claimed there was too much blood in the tent. They said Lindy made up the story. And in 1982, despite no body and little evidence, she was convicted of murder. Michael was convicted as an accessory. Then, in 1986, a piece of Azaria's clothing was found near a dingo den. The truth began to surface. Lindy was released after 3 years in prison, and by 1988, her conviction was overturned. In 2012, after 4 inquests, a coroner finally confirmed what Lindy had said all along. A dingo took her baby. For over 30 years, she lived under the shadow of a lie. A mother who told the truth, but no one believed her. He had everything going for him. A football scholarship, fame on the horizon, and dreams of the NFL. But one lie took it all away. His name was Brian Banks. Born in California in 1985, he was a high school football star at Long Beach Polytechnic. Coaches called him one of the best linebackers in the country. Then, in 2002, at just 17, a classmate accused him of kidnapping and rape. There was no physical evidence. No witnesses, nothing, but the system turned against him. His lawyer told him to take a plea deal or face life in prison. Terrified, Brian pleaded no contest. He was sentenced to 6 years behind bars. When he got out, he wore an ankle monitor and had to register as a sex offender. His scholarship was gone. His dream destroyed. Then, almost a decade later, everything changed. His accuser reached out admitting the story was made up. The California Innocence Project helped prove his innocence. In 2012, after 10 long years, Brian Banks was fully exonerated. He returned to football and even signed with the Atlanta Falcons. But nothing could give him back the years stolen by a lie. A young man with a bright future punished by a justice system built to protect him. He was just 16 when his life stopped. Accused of stealing a backpack he never took. His name was Kalief Browder. In 2010, he was walking home in the Bronx when police arrested him without warning. He couldn't afford bail $3,000. So they sent him to Rikers Island. He stayed there for 3 years, without ever being convicted of a crime. Most of that time, he was in solitary confinement. Beaten by guards, attacked by inmates. Still, he refused to say he was guilty. In 2013, the charges were dropped. Kalief walked free, but the damage was done. He tried to rebuild his life, but the trauma followed him. 2 years later, in 2015, he took his own life. His story exposed the cruel truth about America's justice system, that being poor and innocent can still mean losing everything. Kalief never got justice, but his courage forced the world to see what happens behind closed doors. It was supposed to be a night of fun. But by morning, 5 teenagers became America's most hated faces. They were called the Central Park Five. On April 19, 1989, a woman jogging in Central Park was attacked and left for dead. Police were desperate for answers and needed someone to blame. They arrested 5 Black and Latino teens aged 14 to 16. Under hours of pressure, fear, and exhaustion, the boys gave false confessions just to go home. There was no DNA match, no solid evidence. Still, the media painted them as monsters. They were convicted and spent between 6 and 13 years behind bars. In 2002, another man confessed. DNA proved he was the real attacker. The boys, now grown men, were finally exonerated. They became known as the Exonerated Five. Their story shows how racism and panic can destroy innocent lives, and how the truth, no matter how long it takes, always finds its way out. He spent 18 years behind bars for a crime he didn't commit. When he finally walked free, he thought his nightmare was over. His name was Stephen Avery. In 1985, in Manitowoc County, Wisconsin, he was accused of assaulting a woman he'd never even met. There was no solid evidence, just shaky eyewitness claims. Still, he was convicted and sent to prison. In 2003, new DNA testing proved his innocence. Stephen was released and filed a lawsuit against the county for wrongful conviction. But 2 years later, another crime happened, and once again his name was back in headlines. In 2005, he was accused of murdering Teresa Halbach. Many believed he was framed. Evidence seemed too convenient, too forced. The case divided the nation, especially after the series Making a Murderer. Stephen Avery remains in prison today, still claiming his innocence. His story shows how one man can become a symbol of both justice denied and justice pursued. She was just 16, trapped in a world of abuse, fear, and survival. But when she fought back, the system punished her instead. Her name was Cyntoia Brown. Born in Tennessee, her childhood was filled with trauma and neglect. At 16, she was forced into sex trafficking. One night in 2004, she was picked up by a 43-year-old man. Afraid for her life, Cyntoia shot him, then called for help. Instead of being seen as a victim, she was tried as an adult, sentenced to life in prison. But her story caught national attention years later after activists and celebrities fought for her release. In 2019, after 15 years behind bars, Cyntoia was finally granted clemency. She turned her pain into purpose, helping other girls escape the same fate. Cyntoia's story reminds us sometimes, justice needs a human heart to see the truth. It was 1931. A freight train rattled through Alabama carrying 9 black teenagers and a group of white men. They were just looking for work. But by the end of the day, their lives were destroyed. They became known as the Scottsboro Boys. On March 25, 2 white women accused them of rape aboard the train. There was no real evidence, just lies and fear in a racist South. Within days, the boys were arrested, beaten, and rushed to trial. The juries were all white. The defense had no time to prepare, and one by one they were sentenced to death. The case sparked outrage around the world. People protested, demanding fairness. Lawyers appealed, and in 1932, the U.S. Supreme Court stepped in, ruling that they had been denied proper counsel. Still, the trials continued for years. Some boys served decades in prison before being released or pardoned. By the time the last one walked free, their youth was gone. They were just kids on a train, but they became symbols of how deeply injustice can run. Innocent boys condemned by the color of their skin. They were young, brave, determined to stand for equality, but in a divided America, their voices became their sentence. They were called the Wilmington 10. In 1971, protests erupted in Wilmington, North Carolina over school segregation. 10 civil rights activists, 9 black, 1 white, were accused of burning down a grocery store. There was no solid evidence, just witnesses pressured by police. Still, in 1972 they were convicted of arson and conspiracy, some sentenced to more than 30 years in prison. But the truth was different. It later came out that the witnesses had lied under oath. One admitted he was promised freedom for his testimony. By 1980, a federal appeals court threw out the convictions, calling the trial unfair and unjust. Decades later, in 2012, the governor officially pardoned all 10. But they had already lost years to a system that saw them as threats, not victims. The Wilmington 10 stood for justice and were punished for it. Their story still reminds us, sometimes fighting for what's right costs everything.